Thank you. And thank you guys for joining us. I know it's not the same being at a desk looking at a monitor like we do probably another 18 hours a day. And, being in a nice venue with a glass of wine and some cheese and even more cheese on the stage. So, but, here we are. And it's really an honor to share a little bit of my experience with you. I hope that inspires you. I hope that makes your day go faster. And I hope that you walk away from these feeling like perhaps there's a couple nuggets that you can use today, tomorrow, next month, next year, in your career, whatever. This is how I learn, by looking after people and following people and admiring people and sometimes copying people, as like art always does. And here we are, talking today. So with that said, I will let you jump in on the deck, tell you a little bit about me, show you some of the ideas and the work that I was able to produce thanks to some amazingly generous clients and bosses, and see what you guys think. Is that cool? If you guys are in, then I'm gonna go over here. So I wanted you to get a little bit of a snapshot of who I am. And like Jeremy said, I come from Argentina. If you're seeing the screen up there on the very top, Bragado is the name of the city that I was born and raised in. Small town, about 40,000 people outside of Buenos Aires, maybe 2 hours out. Country, to say the least. A lot like Indiana and Ohio, in a sense that there's a lot of farms and fields and corn and cattle and horses. So a very blessed childhood, growing up in the outdoors with my dog Laika there. It's been many years since I had Laika, but Laika's always with me. Some of the things that are important to my family, my brother, traditions. My hometown, if you can see on the top in the middle, is known for this beautiful legend of a horse, and it's named after a horse. And every year it hosts like this kind of national horse festival, and thousands of people comes into the city. The city triples in size for 2 weeks with all kind of rodeos and events. I'm more of a wine guy versus a beer guy. As you can see there, if I had to pick a soccer team in Argentina, it's probably going to be Boca Juniors versus River Plate. There on the top is one of my favorite restaurants in Buenos Aires, very homey. It's called El Obrero. El Obrero means the worksman. And it's right across a factory in the poorest neighborhood of Buenos Aires, called La Boca, one of the poorest. And it's the kind of place where you go there at lunchtime and you might find a worker on a break from the factory sitting next to you. And on the other side, it might be like Mick Jagger or a senator. It's that kind of place. Here's my older brother with the Fiat 600. Way back in the 70s. I learned to drive in that car. And it was quite scary. And then here on the other side is the first car that I ever bought with my own money. And this was in Indiana when I was living in Columbus, Indiana. When I migrated from Argentina, that's where I ended up stopping by for 4 years. And it was a great place to live, and wonderful, beautiful people. And that was the car that I had. And I bought that car because at that point in time, this was one of the hottest cars growing up in Argentina. And here in America, it was probably the cheapest car that you can buy. And it was made by the French maker Renault. And at the time, Renault wasn't even imported into America anymore. So every time the car broke, it was a pain because you couldn't find any kind of anybody who would work on them or have parts for them. But I found one of those junkyards, I guess they're called, about 60 miles of Colombo that had like 7 of these. And for 4 years, I completely ravaged those. Fun times. And then now here's my family. You can see my daughter, Carson, right here with my wife, and Carson and Nicholas growing up. And a few other things that are interesting to me, like, for example, architecture and food, and I love history and films, Hitchcock, black and white. It's the kind of things that I really enjoy doing. So that's a little bit of a snapshot of me, my personality, my taste. And I think one thing to take away from this slide is something that my mother told me when I got on that plane to come to America when I was 19 years old. And she gave me a hug at the airport, and she whispered in my ear and she says, "Never forget where you come from." And I keep that very much in mind every day. And it's not just where I come from in life, but also in my career. The companies that I work with, the clients that I work with, the bosses that I had, the mentors, they're always with me, and they just, make me better, help me get better every single day. So I'll leave you to do with that, what you will. But today I want to talk about ideas that do. This is something that I believe very strongly in. In my belief, consumers have more often than not moved forward faster than perhaps marketers have and brands have. And while we were still doing advertising, consumers were now more into wanting and demanding brand experiences. And if you were to believe some of the research that we've seen in the last few years, you will realize that people expect from brands more than expect out of their own governments. And that's not just an American phenomenon. It happens pretty much everywhere you go, or in many places. So there's a lot of writing, on brands, because really the medium is no longer the message. Behavior has become the message. So there's a lot of writing on what brands do or don't do, what they choose to do or not choose to do, where they help, where they don't help. People are watching attentively, paying attention, and voting for those brands, with their wallets here and there. So with that comes a lot of opportunity, right? Because now that you got marketing dollars to spend, some of these budgets are very considerable. And you get these briefs coming across your desk with the same question on top every single time, which is, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And there's never one perfect solution or the most perfect solution for any of those problems. There's usually several. And in those several, there will be ads and advertising campaigns, and it will be design solutions, and there'll be some product solutions. But a lot of the solutions will come from what the brands really chooses to do, and what we put on the table for them to, contemplate. So ideas that do, saying versus doing, is very important. It's important to me personally, and I think it's important for our industry. So I would like to share some of those ideas that do, that I have had the good luck and privilege to work on throughout the years. And one of them is this one. This one was done for Nissan North America. And this is when I was ECD here at UWA in Los Angeles running Nissan. And it really is a little bit of a Cinderella story. And you can see why when you look at this case study video. Check it out.
We're here in Dubai, gearing up for one of the world's most prestigious endurance races, the 24 Hours of Dubai. One man with a great story to tell is a young American, Ryan Heidcutter, who just 1 year ago was playing Gran Turismo. As a result of that, he's now driving for Nissan.
It's mind-blowing that when I was playing at home in the living room, I never thought that it would ever give me an opportunity like this. I've always wanted to race. It's all I've ever wanted to do my whole life. Today, Nissan and Sony announced the opportunity of a lifetime for gaming and racing enthusiasts, GT Academy.
I went and I got the game and I noticed the sticker to become a pro race car driver. So I was like, whoa.
The journey began the nationwide online competition to find the fastest virtual drivers.
A lot of us believe that we could do it in real life. I've never raced a car. I've never really even driven a stick shift.
Or you're listening to Motorsports Hour. We're back here with our very special guest. Right after that, you're one of the best Gran Turismo drivers in the country. You're going to Silverstone.
Can you believe that?
That is awesome, man.
Awesome. I think the goal was fishing.
Gentlemen,
once in Silverstone, their journey was documented as a reality TV series that aired nationally on Speed.
We were the best in the game, and now we're going to see who's the best on the track.
I'm willing to drop absolutely everything. Apartment, job, life, I'll leave everything behind. She knows it.
They lived in military-style barracks and competed against each other in a series of on- and off-track challenges. And in order to survive this reality TV show, they had to prove themselves to 3 racing legends.
We're here to pick a GT driver.
You guys are on the clock the entire time. Don't give up. Don't lose hope. Just keep
fight for everything.
I don't know how a team owner would hire you.
Guys, get the out of here, now!
I think there was one point when I'm like, why am I even here? And I kept telling myself that I just, this is my dream and I can't let it go.
Season finale, it was winner take all.
Here they come. One of these two is about to go through. Amazing.
Right after I crossed the line, that's kind of when it all came to a realization that my life was never going to be the same. Since then, I've raced on 3 different continents. I've had a few podiums.
Young American racer Brian Highcutter reached the podium on his first attempt.
I'm Brian Highcutter. I'm America's first GT Academy champion.
GT Academy, a race from virtual to reality.
So that was fun to do. That became, you can say by all intent and purposes, a hit TV series. It went on to air for many, many seasons. It's probably still airing in many different countries and in many different languages. And every year, all these graduates, these winners, will become part of these Nismo athletes, as Nissan called them. And eventually, as I understand, Nissan got to a point where they have a full-blown racing team that was made only from people that came out of this program. So amazing breeding grounds. Eventually, these winners were started to get poached by Porsche and Ferrari and different brands out there, to race, in GT. Some of them tried Formula One, 24 Hours of Dubai, Le Mans. So incredible, right? And again, I say Cinderella story because when you look at, for example, Brian here, Brian was somebody who at the time, I believe, didn't have a job and he was living with his parents, as I understand it. And literally, he took part of this program. He won, and 6 months later, he was placing on the podium, on the 24 Hours of Dubai, for a sport that is incredibly hard to get into historically, right? So the fact that this idea and this show actually changed somebody's life, even if it was one person, but then ended up being really many, many people, is what I mean by ideas that do, really make a difference. And some of these, people are still racing and making a living and becoming champions on their own rights. On the first year that we did this, I don't know, I think it was probably 2013 or so, or earlier perhaps. The series got 4 lions, 1 show pencils, the most next, which is AICP's first ever Next Award, which is celebrated like the most innovative kind of communication out there. Got the best in show. We got in the book, AD&D, Charlotte's and Mary's, and then every year after that, the program grew and got bigger. And if there is one picture for me personally that I love, is particularly this one, where you see Brian here after winning GT Academy being celebrated by none other than Al Unser Jr. and Germany's, Europe's, GT champion. What a role reversal, right? You have the fan being celebrated by the champions, this way. This is one of the images and one of the things that I've done in my career that I'm the most proud of, is to be able to turn the coin here and make somebody's life that much better through the work. We really paid off the line on the campaign and the brand action, which is, victory is anyone's. It could be anyone's if you tried and gave it a shot. So that was GT Academy. That opened the door to a lot more work, got a lot of credibility, within the agency and the network. And then this thing happened. We had, I'll let you watch this show and then I'll tell you a little story.
Reddit. It's not only the weirdest community on the internet, it's also the most influential. If something shows up on Reddit on Monday, it'll be on BuzzFeed by Wednesday and Huffington Post by Saturday. That's why it's called the front page of the internet. But here's the thing. Reddit hates advertising. Brands are petrified of Reddit, and none have even come close to winning them over. Until now. Nissan was selling a car on Amazon. Pretty awesome. But we wanted the story to really blow up. Reddit was our ticket. Risky? Well, yeah, but we had a plan. We started by empowering 2 community managers, real Redditors, and we told them to go ahead, be human, be transparent, no corporate mumbo jumbo. They kicked things off by asking Reddit, if you could have one thing from Amazon, what would it be? Then surprise, we bought it for them. An ultimate bacon sampler, live ladybugs, a horse mask. Did we mention Reddit is weird? We had made a great connection, but we weren't finished yet. Next, we delivered a Nissan in a giant Amazon box to a guy in freezing cold Wisconsin. A Redditor snapped a photo of our giant box and it went #1 on the front page. Jerry Seinfeld chimed in calling it a fake. We made a Seinfeld joke.
And by the way, they're real and they're spectacular.
Now that we were Reddit famous, we asked, what should we do with the empty box? Then we drew pictures of their answers. Redditors made a few of their own.
Oh, what's in the box?
Nissan and Reddit had become, well, friends. And when a few people did try to criticize us, Reddit did what they'd never done before. They actually defended a brand. And like clockwork, what began on Reddit went to BuzzFeed, then Huffington Post, and it didn't stop there. We're talking 139 articles in 35 countries, totaling more than 60 million impressions. And that's how Nissan went over the most hostile environment known to brands. Oh, yeah.
So that was an interesting effort here. You know, this all started with a media buy from Nissan on Amazon. And I wasn't aware that it was a media buy. I just got a brief, we got to do something with Amazon, and here's the budget. And then I gave the assignment to a very promising team of ACDs and gave them a week. And a week later, I walk in a room, and here's a room filled with like storyboards for banners. Or, you know, if you remember banners. And I didn't quite understand what's happening. So they explained to me that the media buy was actually, or the partnership with Amazon was actually a media buy, and it was nothing but banners, you know, X amount of dollars in banners. And that's when we started to ask ourselves, well, is this the best way to spend our clients' money? Could we do something better, something more, knowing that banners got like 0.01 something % click-through rate? And we say, could we take that money and do something that will get the client talked about, like giving headlines, get them in the local news or in the national news or one news? And that's exactly what we did. We had a conversation with our media partners, and we said, what if? And what if it's a great tool that I encourage you to remember and use as you create work? You know, okay, yeah, you think that's great, but what if? What if you added this thing? We said, what if we could sell the first car ever on Amazon? That's probably worth some headlines. And of course, immediately the answer from the lawyers was no, because cars are sold by franchisees, the dealers, and franchisee laws say that you can't sell a car. They have to be bought, you know, at a dealership. And then we say, but what if we know, for example, that you can pre-order things on Amazon? What if people could pre-order the car on Amazon, but then buy it from the dealer? They pull in their zip code and we match it with the right dealer. And then we went back and the lawyer said, you know what, you can do that. And we talked with Amazon. Amazon was on board, and they said, you know, Nissan sold the first car on Amazon. And within 3 days, we were in 100 different countries being talked about by the news. And, you know, all of this happened, which goes to show that always having an open line of communication with your team and always being open to a what if on both sides, your side, the creative side, the account side, the media side, the client side, will more likely produce the best results and the most effective results, which ultimately is what a client really cares about, effectiveness. So that's why I wanted to show you that particular example. This one here you might have heard of. It's called the Heisman House, and it's a partnership between Nissan and ESPN and the Heisman Trophy Trust. And it goes something like this.
In America, the Heisman Trophy is the most talked about award in all of sports. Heisman award given to college football's single best player each year. Even with all the media hype, fans had relatively no access to these players they had devoted so much to. With Heisman Trophy winners thinking of themselves as members of an elite brotherhood, who doesn't win a Heisman, they become one. So Nissan created the world's most exclusive athletic fraternity, filled with college football's greatest athletes. Then they opened the doors to the fans. Nissan Heisman House, a fully integrated campaign offering fans the chance to get to know the Heismans. Nissan partnered with the Heisman Trust to bring the fraternity to life, showcasing the Heismans in a series of episodes airing before the big games.
Lemonade on the front porch? What are you guys, 80?
A series of print ads in all the major sports publications. An ESPN primetime TV special gave a more in-depth look into this fantasy world. For fans wanting more, we created a website filled with highlights, behind-the-scenes content, bios, and professionals that showed another side of the Heisman.
He's spinning and he's getting some power rallies up here.
But push us forward. Fans didn't just watch the Heismans, they challenged them in several 8-bit video games. Taking things one step further, Nissan and ESPN turned the fantasy world into a reality, building an actual Heisman House on a different college campus each week.
Nissan Heisman House 2013 style Cowboy Classic. Idiot.
There, fans were able to get to know the Heismans in person. With fans becoming experts on the world of Heisman, Nissan even gave them an official vote for the next Heisman winner.
Let's take a look at who the fans thought should have won the Heisman.
Tonight's Heisman Trophy winner is going to carry a burden as the new guy in the Heisman House.
So when the Heisman fraternity welcomed its new member, the fans were now an integral part of the experience. Through Heisman House, Nissan had created an authentic relationship with fans that lasted an entire season.
So that was Heisman House. That was first season, I believe. And oh, I think I'm frozen here. And I show you that because the way that started is also interesting. You know, the brief was to do 2 30-second TV spots. And we have, you know, a fairly good budget to do so. And I remember getting the brief and looking at it. And I'm not a sports guy, or I wasn't at the time. I didn't even know what Heisman really was. So when I get briefed from the account team and I understood the importance of Heisman in America and college football, I wonder, and I said, well, what if we could do something more with this money, as opposed to 2 30-second TV spots that might last for, a couple of weeks and then people get tired of seeing? Could we bring something to the table that is more than that? And the answer always is like, you can bring whatever you want as long as you bring the 2 30-second TV spots, because that's how things work. So we did that. We watched a lot of interviews with the Heisman Trophy winner. And one thing they all said that they all had in common was, when you win a Heisman, you don't win a trophy, you just become part of a fraternity. And when we realized that everybody felt that way about it, we figured, what if we could build the world's biggest frat house? And it's a fraternity where all the Heisman winners lived, fictitiously, of course, but every single fan is invited to come and live with them. And suddenly we were able to democratize this idea of Heisman, and the Heisman House became the hub for all things Heismans in America. And it took a couple of flights and very strong meetings with, good meetings with ESPN for them to really understand what we're trying to do and to allow us to go and do not just 2 30-second TV spots with our partnership, but create this destination, this home for every single fan. And then on top of that, create this traveling, show, this traveling Heisman House that will go through, all over the country and get fans. And it became probably one of the biggest, if not the single biggest, like brand integration for ESPN. I know, in fact, that many brands have gone to them more than once and asked, how can I get my own Heisman House? And that's a good testament of not settling for the brief. You get a brief, it asks for one thing, and you look at what you have to play with, and you always have to have your client's end game in mind, because sometimes they don't even see the opportunity, and they don't even see that when you're fiscally responsible and you kind of have somewhat of a brain on your shoulders, you can figure out a better way to spend their money to create more, effective work. And what I wanted to give, and my team wanted to give them, was like, let's not do a one-off thing. Let's do something that becomes intellectual property that you can grow year after year. So it become an investment. So the next money that comes around for another 2 TV spots, we'll be building on what we built this year. So you're not restarting every single time. And today, the Has My Houses one is still one of the biggest, I don't know, almost 9 years running programs, out there, incredibly popular and, and huge. And then from there, I had an offer to move to Michigan and lead the advertising for Ford at a company called GTV, which is part of the WPP network. And this was a lovely, lovely job. When I got the offer and they asked me, what do you want for your press picture? I realized that year they were launching a whole new redesigned Mustang. And I knew that one of the most classic Mustangs out there was, the 1967 Mustang, which happened to be the year I was born. And I say, you know what? Every time a CCO comes into a company, it's kind of like a fresh start. So why don't we do something that connects the old and the new? And we got a 67 Mustang and a 2018 Mustang. We put them together and kind of bridging the gap. And that was the idea behind the shot that became then the press release, shot. Shot by my friend Kevin Necessary, a wonderful photographer, if you guys ever have a need for anybody here in Orange County. And at Ford, we got to do also great work, advertising-wise, marketing-wise, content-wise, but also in the brand activation and ideas that do, arena, which is where I'm the most passionate. So I want to show you a couple of pieces. These two come from the office in Brazil, because now I'm in a global network. And by the way, there's amazing ideas happening in Italy and in London and in China. But these two from Brazil kind of really touched me. So I want to share them with you, and then we'll talk about them. The first one is this one. And it's important to know that in Brazil, the strategy is safety for Ford. And they're like the #1 sellers of like big semi-rig trucks. So they have a big responsibility in a country where the most fatalities that happen on the roads are usually truck drivers that fall asleep. And that was the insight here. And we said, can we stand for safety? And what can we do to make the truckers' lives safer, better, with our marketing dollars? So this is what we did.
The profession with more deaths in Brazil is the truck driver. And big part of these deaths happens because they fall asleep while driving. In order to slow down the statistics, Ford Trucks introduces Ford Safe Cap. A cap that doesn't let the truck driver sleep at the wheel. We developed a research to form a basis of movements that allow us to identify which ones are related to the duties of the job and which ones mean lack of sleep. After mapping, we took our database to a software installed on the cap that identifies the sleep behaviors through an accelerometer and a gyroscope to alert the driver in 3 warnings: sound, light, and vibration.
Ele vai detectar esses movimentos de cabeça, provavelmente até numa fase antes do sono, nessa fase de vigília relaxada. Ele não está dormindo, mas ele já está ali com um tônus muscular relaxado. Então ele pode, talvez, prever um sono antes do caminhoneiro, do motorista estar dormindo realmente.
Ele vai dizer para você o seguinte: pare, descanse, procura dar uma melhorada para depois sair.
The Safe Cap was launched in October 2017 at the largest trade show of trucks in Latin America. And since then, it has been news around the world.
Convey that can prevent falling asleep while driving.
Ford has just developed a truck app.
In the second half of 2018, SafeCap can be bought online and at Ford truck dealers. But before it was a simple accessory, turned into an item of security on the roads. Ford SafeCap.
And the next one.
O primeiro impacto é a visão de terceiros em relação a você.
Parece que todo lugar que você vai estão te apontando que você não é bem-vindo. Não é para você estar lá.
E algumas fichas vão caindo. Eu acho que a ficha principal é você mudar o ponto de vista para coisas que antes você não dava importância, você começa a dar quando você adquire uma deficiência. Quando se fala de arquitetura de uma grande cidade, equiparar as oportunidades significa uma transformação. E a gente ainda está muito longe disso.
Eu não sei o que me espera no próximo quarteirão. Se vai ter asfalto, se vai ter um poste no meio. Enquanto a gente não tem um lugar que pense nessa acessibilidade, por que não criar meios?
O Accessibility Mat é o protótipo do tapete do EcoSport redesenhado para servir como uma ferramenta de acesso. A gente não está inventando uma peça nova. Na verdade, nós estamos dando mais uma função para uma peça que já existe lá dentro.
Quando a Ford me oferece um tapete que eu possa atravessar a rua, colocar ele numa guia que não tem uma rampa de acesso e subir, a sociedade que está vendo isso, ela está tendo outra mensagem, outra leitura da pessoa com deficiência.
Como fazer algo que seja leve e resistente ao mesmo tempo?
Foi feito pesquisas de materiais que seriam utilizados para que ele fosse o mais fácil de manusear.
Após o uso, ele consegue alçar esse tapete e voltá-lo para a cadeira de rodas.
Muito, muito legal. De poder carregar uma acessibilidade.
E aí, num determinado momento, surgiu a ideia de mapear a acessibilidade da cidade com o chip que tem no tapete.
Quando ele é usado, ele manda um sinal para o aplicativo do smartphone do cadeirante, via Bluetooth. Geralmente, as coisas que você nunca parou para pensar que poderia existir, esses são os grandes presentes.
Mais do que o tapete me ajudar a subir, eu acho que tem essa força da mensagem de independência da pessoa com deficiência, de autonomia da pessoa com deficiência.
Te dá liberdade de saber para onde você quer ir, você pode. Te permite fazer essa última.
So the accessibility mat, this was for the Ford EcoSport, an SUV. It's basically a very simple idea. Let's take a trunk cover that is usually does one function and let it redesign and reinvent it, reimagine them to do a lot more. And Safe Cap, you know, a great way to use technology and something that most truck drivers already have with them, you know, a baseball cap. To do something that could potentially save their lives. You know, Safe Cap now is being sold on every Ford dealership in Brazil, and Mobility Mat, you know, has enjoyed, you know, its moment as well, and it will, you know, for years to come. I show you this because they're perfect examples of ideas that do. The amount of goodwill from the press and from the people and the ultimate consumer. Anybody who's going to buy one of these, you know, vehicles has been, you know, tremendous. The response has been incredibly positive. But of course, it has to be that way because we're genuinely and very transparently trying to do something that truly helps them have a better day. And that's the, you know, that's when you do work that, you know, is purposeful, that has, you know, a higher end in life, you know, beyond just selling a product, just making people's lives better. I also wanted to share these examples because, as you can imagine, these things don't happen very quickly. It's not a thing that you have an idea on Tuesday or Friday and it's out next week, like another idea I'm going to show you, you know, later on. Like the Mobility Mat, for example, this was like almost 4 years in the making for a group of very, very passionate people led by an incredible creative director in Brazil, Vico Benavides is his name. Who was a wonderful, tremendous, like creative partner. So this idea was on the runway, about to take off and do this final flight when I came in as a CCO at GTV. So I can never in a million years says, oh, this is my idea. None of these ideas are ever mine. They're part of a collective, they're part of a team. You know, but I wanted to share this because sometimes the executive director, the creative director job, it's not as clean cut as you would want it. You know, it kind of changes by the day. Sometimes you do lead from the front. You know, you do go out there with a machete and clear the jungle so the creators behind you can go and build something. But sometimes your job is just to support, to lead from the back and push forward. You know, this idea belongs to somebody else, but this was the right thing to do for our client. So I gave it my full support as any creative director, ECD, or CCO would, because it was the right thing to do for our clients. So I supported it, championed it until the day came out, and then did my best for it to become, as famous and as welcome as it could, not only outside of Ford, but also inside of Ford and the agency. And that is something that is, I think, is very important for all of you who are going to go on your career to become a manager, a creative director, have teams under you, to remember that, and support them in their ideas. And no matter where that idea came from, if it's a good idea, it's good for the client, it's good for the team, it's going to be good for the agency. So get behind it, go after it. So all the credit for these two ideas go to our team in Brazil, who are some of the most creative people I have ever met. And then this happened, as you guys know, this little big thing, C19 came around, and suddenly all that work has a different taste, at least a different taste in our mouths. Literally, within a short time after this happened, then we started to see this. This was the first one, I think, one of the first ones that I saw out there. And at the same time that this was just starting to come out, it feels like so long ago, but this was literally, like 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. At the same time that this just started to come out, my friend Musa Tariq, who is here on the very top on the left, who's the global head of experiences at Airbnb, threw a link on Twitter for a Zoom meeting and said, hey, I have a free hour. Who wants to join? And all these wonderful people showed up. That was day one. And then they had so much fun, and it was great, that he said, let's do it again at lunch. So they did it 2-3 times. And then eventually I showed up. I'm there right here on the top next to him. And in this one meeting, by the way, the only one that I attended, I meet this gentleman, Amine Areski, who is in Germany, in Stuttgart. By the way, I don't know anybody else, maybe one other person in this whole grid besides Musa. So we all meet and we all talk about what we're going through, what it is like to work from home, giving each other tips. This is what's working for me. This is what's not working. Hey, I'm working with this project. Can you guys do something with it? And Amine Areski happened to mention that he had a thought for a 3D printable mask. And that kind of hit something in my brain. So I immediately asked him, could we talk after the Zoom? So after the Zoom, we got in a meeting, and next thing you know, I knew immediately I had to introduce him to this gentleman, which is Justin Nussbaum, who's in Tennessee. And Justin is a founder and CEO of a very, very innovative 3D printing company called TRANSCEND Manufacturing 3D. And his ideas are so forward that he's being funded partially by one of our national laboratories. And Justin, full disclosure, months before all this happened, had reached out to me to ask me to sit on his board of directors as an advisor. So I knew that he was there. And I don't know anything about 3D printing. But I was able to connect the dots and say, these two guys need to meet. So that was on a Friday. And on Saturday morning, literally, people from LA, Knoxville, Tennessee, and Stuttgart were meeting on a Zoom, just like that. And within days, by the way, we never met each other before, through collaboration, talk about cross-border, multifaceted teams coming together through the magic of Zoom. Within days, we were sharing printed designs and talking about them and brainstorming. And while all of that was happening, Justin and Amine were actually building prototypes and visualizing things that I could never do in a million years. And it became a very cool use of our time, with Amine being in Germany and us being in America with 2 different time zones. Because we could meet in the morning, 9 a.m., and give feedback, and Amine will go to work. And then Justin could take Amine's feedback and work throughout the day. And then by the time that Amine woke up, he would have new things to look at and innovate and improve on. So that's why this went very, very quickly. Literally, within 3 or 4 days, we have a mask design that worked with any 3D printer anywhere in the world that was cleanable, reusable, 100% free, and has a filter pot design that could take different filter media, meaning you can use it with like t-shirt cloth, cloths from like a pillowcase, a Kleenex, folded in two, and other things. Now people are using HEPA filters and all that kind of stuff. All of these happened literally within 3-4 days, thanks to several factors. One, technology. Two, a group of people who had somebody else's interest first, not theirs. We just wanted to do something to help. And three, a group of people with that respected each other's and each other's ideas, and that's why things were able to move. And we were not afraid to say what if at every single turn. This is what we ended up with. It's a mask with the filter pod that comes apart. And by the time that we were done with that, the world has already changed. That one sign of no mask actually was everywhere, ubiquitous. And in fact, it had become a crisis. And all of this happened in the span of 5 days, which is absolutely incredible to think about. And by the way, it feels like a year ago, and it was only like 2 weeks ago. And by the time that this had become a crisis, we already had a website up with a free download for this design. When you click download, it will take you to Thingiverse. For all of you who don't know, Thingiverse is a community, open source, 3D printing kind of Alibaba's cave, where people can go and find designs for anything and everything to download and print. So it's there, it's open source, the community can take it and improve on it. We get a lot of feedback every day. We're able to update the file as we go, meaning that every time somebody goes to the website, downloads it, it will be the latest iteration of the mask that exists. This is what it looked like from a couple of different views. It's a company in Ohio, Mills James, which is a post-production and events company. Those guys helping us doing these beautiful renderings that you see here. So suddenly it became like a global project. These are some of the things we had in mind as we were designing this. We just wanted loops that will take all kind of elastic material because it's made for people at home and people are going to have different kind of stuff to be able to use it. So we wanted to make it versatile. It can be sanitized between uses. We know that a lot of the problem with masks is they're single use and there are not many of them. Hence the crisis. We wanted to be very ergonomic. It had to be comfortable, to be worn by people for long periods of time. So we worked a lot on the rim and design and how it fits in your face. And I had to say that it's even better once you put it in hot water, once it's printed for a few seconds, and then you can mold the edge and press it on your face. Careful not to burn yourself. And it will just mold to the contour of your face and fit much better, much more comfortably. We wanted a large breathing port, and we wanted the port angled down. So if somebody coughed on you, it wouldn't hit the filter right on, and that filter would have a longer lifespan. And we wanted to make sure that you could replace the filter media from the outside without having to reach inside the mask. We have seen some designs of masks where you're supposed to reach in the mask and pop the filter out. And by that time, you're just contaminating, your breathing chamber pretty much. So we wanted to solve for that. And when it came to people who actually had proper filtering material, like procedure masks, for example, we knew that we wanted to do something that will just extend the lifespan of those. So if you were to take a procedure mask and divide into 9 rectangles, that is enough there to make 9 filters that you can use without a mask. So basically you're multiplying your mask by 9. So that was a way to help people who already had one. But again, this is made for people who did not have a mask, who may have a 3D printer, or may know somebody, or may have access to one to a library, or their municipality, or a company, or even go to UPS or FedEx, because now they have 3D printers at all other locations, and you can actually print files the same way we used to go and print at Kinko's, for those of us who are old enough to remember that. This is what a mask looked like when in use. It's actually pretty cool. Kids in particular love it. It's different. The site is very dynamic. Obviously, can be accessed through mobile. And now we're starting to get pictures from the community. This is somebody in North Carolina who has figured out a way to print masks a lot faster. Usually it takes 5 to 6 hours to print one of these masks. By doing a batch like this, it will take 2 hours a mask, which is a huge, huge improvement, especially when you're making hundreds of masks for a hospital or a facility. This comes from the same person. Nice close-up, really nice finish. And you can see on the right here, he has used some weather stripping. This is basically some soft foam tape to seal the rim and make it more comfortable, which is what I plan to do to mine, exactly that. And here he is on the right. And on the left, we have a kid from the UK who sent us a picture of his mask, and I love it in yellow. It's a beautiful color. There. But that was 2 weeks ago. And within 2 weeks, for a website that hasn't been advertised at all, we got no media budget. And we hit over 10,000 visits yesterday or a couple of days ago. We know that it's being downloaded in 5 continents. Thousands of downloads, which means that probably tens of thousands of masks out there, because whoever downloaded very rarely will print one. We got people in the UK printing 200 at a time, 145 at a time. And just this last Monday, the University of South Florida started printing them in quantities. I don't know how many, but I know that they have like a whole, kind of printing farm going, helping. And every day we get requests from somebody else, to get masks. We got a request yesterday for 500 of them for a local hospital here in California. And today, just to stay up to speed, today we find out that we have over 140 media articles about the mask, picked up around the world, which has the potential to reach 79 million readers or viewers, or a mix of both. So that's a lot of firepower, right? And I think that's the power of an idea that do, right? We could have done an ad and say, hey, go and make yourself a mask and go and visit Thingiverse. But no, we just ask ourselves, how can we help? Where can we help? What can we control? And what is the problem we're trying to solve? Which is how every brief should start. And that's what we did, literally 3 cats, in a couple of weeks. But 3 cats is kind of misleading. Yes, we're leading the pack, but immediately all these people you see here, I wanted to include them because they all, in a small or a large part, had contributed to making the website possible, making the mask possible, creating awareness, helping us perhaps with writing a press release, editing my English as a second language emails, as you can imagine. So all these people here so far, and there might be more of them pretty soon, are actually helping, making the mask available. And I told you, it's a community, right? This 3D printing community, it's incredible. And one of the things that we heard was, hey, what can you do for people who are hearing impaired, patients that can't see the lips and the mouth of their nurses and doctors? Is there anything you can do for them? So now we are designing a new iteration of the mask that has a clear front on it. So hearing impaired patients can actually see their doctors and nurses and caretakers, faces, smiles, lips moving, which hopefully will help change their whole experience that they're going through. You guys might have seen in the news, some nurses have been taking pictures of them smiling and pasting it in front of their chests, pretty much, so patients could see their faces. And because everybody in the world is wearing a mask, so this is our solution for that, and we can't wait to get this out there. So that's what we're working on, now. Again, 2.5 weeks into it, and all through feedback from the community. I tell you this because a lot of us are at home right now, many of us, some with a job, some without a job. But just because we're home, it doesn't mean that creativity has to stay at the office. There are things that we can do with this time. We have a lot of creativity, a lot of incredible people, a lot of companies out there trying to help. Ford is making ventilators, GM is making ventilators, everybody's making face shields. We happen to tackle masks. So I hope that this inspires you to look around and say, if it's within you, it's not for everybody, hey, you know what? I have this free time. I might be able to help with something. And this is what we did. And I hope that will inspire the creative type to say, you know what? Creativity is an incredible, powerful force to solve. When we come up with ideas that they're not ads, but are great actions, great brand actions. And by the way, right now, we are all our own brand. We will be remembered for what we do not do in this time. So this was my way to answer that. And there's a million other ways to answer that. And the three of us got together, did this thing, and we try to make it better every day. So I hope it inspires you to know that just because you're at home, it doesn't mean that you had to stop being you, Stay creative, keep going at it. And if you have the will, the power, and the internet, a lot of things can happen. Which goes to say, you probably hear this a lot, it's like, it's all about digital. And the truth is, it's really not about digital. It is, however, about technology. Being a creator today, it is understanding digital, and it's understanding data, and it's understanding design thinking, and a million other things that make digital transformation possible. But at the end of the day, it's truly understanding and leveraging technology to make the leaps that need to be made. So whenever you're in a room concepting with somebody and the briefs about digital this and that, try to think beyond digital and think about technology and what you can do with that. And then digital becomes a delivery mechanism or an enabling mechanism to make your idea come to life. You hear a lot, or we heard a lot for a while, it's all about mobile first. And the truth is, no, it's never been about mobile first. It's always been about people first. When we start with people's needs, when we start with people's wants, and we do it with empathy and with caring and understanding, when we truly listen to them, we can give them the products, the services, sometimes the ads. Yes, that would be the right thing to do. That will help them have a better day. So think about the user first. Have empathy for the user. UX is where it's at. It's not about mobile first. It's about people first, always. And then I like to talk about meaning, right? Because you have to create with some kind of meaning behind it. Otherwise, it really becomes meaningless. Because you're competing with so many other messages every single day. There's so much out there that you have to stand out with. You're really competing for share of mind. Right? How do I do something that is people are gonna think about it before they think about, what's going on in Washington? Because that's what you're competing with, share of mind. The name of the game is earned media at a time with marketing budgets get smaller. And the way you do that is by creating things that are worth talking about. And in order for them to be worth talking about, they have to have meaning in people's lives. And when that happens, then those things are relevant in people's lives. And that is the currency that brands trade in today, relevancy. So keep that in mind. Think about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts after. When you think about a Mask for All, it was made, you could say it was made by, obviously, there's more people behind it, but it was just these three guys, three crazy cats, with 3 weeks ago, they didn't know each other from Adam, come together, do something amazing, and how is that possible? It's possible because in order to be a creative today, you have to kind of have the mentality that you are like a MacGyver of advertising. You're given a push pin and a ball of yarn, and you got to make an amazing piece of content, that's going to break the internet. And guess what? A lot of people find a way to do that every single day. We did it here. We had an idea, we had a thought, we connected some dots. Amin in Germany has some skills. Justin in Knoxville has some skills. I in LA have some skills. We put that together, complemented each other, and within a week and a half, we have something that has the potential to save somebody's life. And that alone helps me sleep better at night. And that's part of being kind of a jack of all trades a little bit, right? And be able to wear different hats and run in different shoes and get in as many races as you can. So being a MacGyver of advertising, it's something that I think you will find useful if you can see yourself as one. And lastly, and what really makes the world goes around is what makes everything possible is the fact that you care. You care enough to propose it, you care enough to fight for it, you care enough to make it happen, you care enough to not take no for an answer, you care enough where good enough wasn't good enough, and you kind of support each other and push each other, and you ask, what if, what if, what if? And, you know, for 2 weeks, I looked for somebody to help me with PR with this thing. I couldn't find anybody, but they didn't stop me because I care enough until I went and found somebody who could release, you know, a press release for me. And if not, I will learn how to do it on my own. So caring the most about the work, no matter what the assignment, no matter what the budget, no matter what the brand, no matter what the time, is paramount. And if you look at any one of my emails at the very bottom, that is my signature. By the way, I didn't come up with this thing. I do care the most. It has been like a constant in my career, but I was at one club initiative where they had like these executive leaders summits through the year, and I was on one of them, and one of my fellow creative directors, ECDs, founders, told the story of a client who had this line hanging on the wall behind his desk, care the most. And when I heard that, I was like, that's me. That is exactly me. That is exactly the one constant thing in my life. Like I always care the most about the work. And then I learned to care most about my teams, my agency, and my clients, and my brands. And when you do that, the result is that no matter what work you do, it's always going to be the best work you can do. And that is the secret sauce, to care the most. So I would love it if you like sleep on that tonight. And if you wake up tomorrow thinking, you know what, that was right. Because I really feel it on my bones that it is right. And this is the last slide. And it's again because I care the most, that I want to end up with these two websites, amasforall.com, and we provide ppe.org, an organization put together by Siobhan McCafferty here in Los Angeles and people from the Fiera Foundation, where they are doing not just masks, but all kind of PPE. And they're matching people that have needs with people that have PPE or can make the PPE. So if you or anybody you know, or anybody you know that knows somebody that might have a need for PPE, please send them to weprovideppe.org, because there will be somebody there to help them connect with hopefully someone that can actually provide what they need. And right now, what we're going through together, and every single little bit that we do helps. So this is why I wanted to end with this and give you a chance to write this down and share it with anybody that might have use for. And that's it for me. Thank you for listening, and I would love to hear some questions and inquiries or comments. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Tito. Incredible presentation. I'm really inspired. We'll open up.
It was 1 hour. That's amazing.
It's pretty amazing, yeah. If any of you guys have any questions, please hop in and ask directly.
And it's okay if you don't have questions, as long as you have a glass of wine and you can cheer. I have water on a rare occasion.
I did the poster for the original presentation that was canceled. I just want to say thank you for sharing your story and your experience with us, Tito.
And thank you for the poster. You made me look better than I imagined. Thank you.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
I'm really bummed that we couldn't do this in person. I was so looking forward to being in Ohio and spending time with you guys and maybe share a dinner. But hopefully in the future we have other things to talk about.
Tito, it strikes me that you have such a great experience working with so many brands across nations and across time zones. From what you're doing right now to the work you're doing at Ford and with the companies in Brazil. What strategies do you have for making that a smoother working relationship? Certainly, sometimes there's it's not just language barriers, but also like cultural barriers and time zone barriers. It must be really difficult, but you seem to do it with ease, and we'd love to know your secret.
No, thank you. I think it is a little bit easier for me than for some people, if only because I was born and raised in Argentina. Being born and raised in Argentina from family that is half Italian and half Spaniard, as you can imagine, there was a lot of like family gathering, togetherness, hugs, kisses all the time. So there is a natural part of me that kind of wants to bring people together. And I have found that has become very, very useful when dealing with teams across the world, teams that sometimes never talked to each other before, or they were at odds before. I have been lucky enough to be able to bring those people together, aligning all under the same North Star, being able to be clear about what the goals are for our clients, our brands, and then rely on their expertise to kind of educate me on what's appropriate for each culture. Because I think that we as a brand, as marketers, we have to think globally, of course, because it is one world. And the moment you're online, you're a multinational company, pretty much. But you have to be able to act local, right? Not only through the lens of effectiveness, but also through the cultural lens of just simple, good old respect for people, their cultures, and what things might mean for them that means something else someplace else. And what I found out is that when clients in different countries feel that you truly listen to them and you truly want to do what's right for them and their market, not necessarily for the mothership, if you do that, eventually that will be the right thing for the mothership. They will open doors and they will help you succeed, and they will help you help them succeed.
That's great. You mentioned a lot, maybe a few times, that there's been like this, like a key insight, and it makes a lot of sense when you're talking about a culture maybe you're not as familiar with. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your the role of research in some of the projects you've had?
Yeah, I mean, everything starts with research. Data is king, no matter what. As creators, we've been using data since the beginning of time, or in the 60s, when DDB came out with the brief, and that now, we all kind of rally behind. But the truth is, it's really, really important to know, right, the dynamics of the market, to know as much as you can of your customer. Things that, top of the mind that you can ask is, viewing habits. So, where you can reach them, where you can find them at a certain time of their day, other life stage, spending habits. So, what's important to them, where their money is going, what are they prioritizing versus, something else. There's so much data out there that you do need to gather and contemplate. And, if you don't know how to analyze it, have somebody on a strategy or analytics to help you understand so you can interpret them creatively, right? But data is absolutely everything. And without it, we just couldn't have an informed brief. And it always starts with a very informed brief if you want to do highly, effective work.
I have a question. How do you build trust with your account team? Because I think a lot of agencies, probably other viewers here can relate. When a client comes in with a specific request, how do you build trust and break through what is asked to to really help them open the door for more of this kind of initiative. You really.
Yeah. I know there is an issue in many places. And historically, you heard about the war between creative and account, right? Like there's always like some kind of war. I never really subscribed to that idea or that mentality. For me, advertising has always been it's a team effort. Right? It's not like a solo sport. This is a team sport. And account managers are there to be sometimes the buffer between you and a no, a hard no, in order to be able to, go and sell a piece of work that might be controversial for whatever reason. And there's a million other things that they do. But the secret, right, to creating that dynamic where we are all in the same team, it has to do by starting with mutual respect, right? It's by having one North Star that we can all agree and get behind, by respecting each other for our own abilities, right, and our shortcomings, and be able to supplement each other. And by truly demonstrating to that team that you care about them and their success. That you're not just about, the idea for the idea's sake. The idea for the idea's sake doesn't really mean much. Doing things for an award show doesn't really mean much. We're here to create results for our clients. And guess what? The ideas that create results are the ideas that win. Because, I have been able, and I have been lucky enough and privileged to judge some of these shows. The One Show and the Andes, and, this and that. And what happened in those judging rooms is that we're all connected. And you can smell something fake in the room. And you can check a claim online immediately. And you know when something is fake or not, most of the time, right? So to be able to create that respect for each other and to show that you care about each other and the work, the real work, and that goes, again, to your client, to be able to show to your client that you care about their own personal success. One thing I say to my clients, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, is that part of my job is to make you look good in front of your boss, because it's true, right? And when you come in with that kind of openness and willingness to listen, to put yourself on their shoes and bring in the best possible solutions you can bring so they can have that kind of success, then it's a lot easier to say yes to an idea. Because believe me, saying no is always the easiest answer for anybody. Nobody got fired for saying no and killing an idea on a brief, ever. Right? So that's the simplest, easiest, safest thing to do. To say no, bring me another one. Right? So in order to do that, it really is a team effort. It is account, it's strategy, it's you, creative, it's production, it's analytics, it's the studio, it's the design department, it's absolutely everybody shooting for one single thing, which is what's the best for your client. Danica smiling, she gets it.
Awesome.
Well, if this is it, I'm going to drink.
All right.
Well, guys, you can all reach me through Twitter or LinkedIn or Instagram. Feel free to connect. Feel free to follow up with any other questions, inquietudes, something that you might wake up with tomorrow, or perhaps you were a little bit shy to ask here. It's okay. And I'll be happy to answer and, help you in any way I can. Again, this is a we sport. It's not a me sport. And part of the joys of, being who I am is to be able to give back, to people that are starting out or, peers that are at the same level, and bounce things off and make myself available to, help everybody out.